It's important to understand where your traffic is coming from. Just like landing pages, when you're sending different types of traffic to a standard offer, it's important to dial this in for your traffic sources. Some react to different things better than others. Say, for example, JV traffic. If you're partnering with a JV who's going to send his list to your webinar, it's important to position yourself as an authority figure or friend or colleague or work compatriot alongside this person on the registration page, because they know, like, and hopefully trust that person. So you can do it with the high-res photograph images. That works pretty well. One of the tips that one of my JV clients and partners is using very effectively right now is specifically on a JV webinar registration page, have your JV partner shoot a 2 or 3 minute video just explaining very high level detail why the webinar is great, why it's got them excited, and why they're sending their list to the webinar. And we've been noticing, just with a simple YouTube video, 3 minutes, nothing fancy, shot and put on the webinar registration page, is getting a bump of like 20 to 30% in conversions for signups. So that's a pretty good one. Alright, so JV traffic is obviously the easiest and fastest to get once you have some connections with people. If you don't, and that's always the egg and the chicken part of things, if you're not friends with bigger JVs, you don't have the connections to get them to mail for you, what you can also do is circumnavigate that by agreeing to pay them a minimum cost for the mailing, whether that's a flat cost fee or a minimum per click, so they know that even if your offer isn't as dialed in or they don't have a working relationship with you, they're not wasting money and losing money on their business by sending to your offer and they don't know you yet. So that sometimes works if you haven't got the connections with the JVs to start with. But what I wanted to talk about was the JV traffic. A lot of people think it's free. It's not. It's costing you 50% of the price of your product. So it's actually pretty expensive traffic. It just doesn't cost you anything up front. When you can dial in paid traffic, cold traffic, which does take a little bit more time, you will be able to dial that in for less than the front end half price of your product. Presumably if you're sending or selling rather a $500, $700, $1,000 product, you don't have to be giving half of that away on paid traffic. Now, one of the really good things to understand with that, again, it's a little bit different from JV traffic, from warm traffic that establish a bond with somebody and trust what they say. If you're sending cold traffic, you have to warm up the prospects a little bit more, even to get them to attend the webinar. And a good way of doing this, one of my partners has done this again very effectively, is with media buys. If you're scaling up to big media buy traffic, don't necessarily just send your cold prospect, the guy that's just seen your banner or whatever form of paid traffic it is, to a high ticket webinar registration page. Send him to something else in between. And one of the guys I'm working with has done this very effectively by putting a tripwire product in front of the webinar. So tripwire is one of the things that Ryan and Perry talk about, where it's a low ticket product, very good value to the actual customer, but it's a low price, so it's easy for them to say yes and go ahead, whip out their credit card, and then go from a prospect to a customer. Now, once you've got a customer who's already bought your stuff, seen the quality of it, and likes and knows and trusts you, it's a lot easier to put them onto a high ticket webinar after that and then sell them the high ticket product. And that's been working really well for one of the guys I know that was trying to dial in high scale media buys and not really working with anything. Surveys also probably would work very well. That's another strategy used. Don't think I've seen it used for webinars yet. There we go. That might be a cutting edge new strategy just here for WebinarJam. Works very well with media buys. Send people to a survey beforehand, ask them a few questions, get them interacting. Strangely enough, some of the media buy geniuses that I know don't even need to have the survey feed you back any information. Sounds very counterintuitive, but just the very fact that somebody's engaged, been asking questions and interacting, and then taken on to the next step really bumps conversions, even if you don't give them something useful after they've completed the survey, which seems crazy, but it works. So there you go, that's media buy stuff, tripwires, and JV traffic. That should be enough to get you started. Now obviously there's contests which are done very well, and I'm sure Bill McIntosh will have talked about that in his segment. Another great strategy is giving people almost like a breadcrumb of little gifts or little giveaways throughout your webinar. And I've seen people do this effectively on $1 million webinar launches where they're not launching a new product, and rather than just say, hey, opt in and get this free XYZ, they will take more time to drop a whole bunch of little gifts or little interactive presents throughout the whole process. So when you register, you get some kind of a PDF or report. When you attend, you get something else. When you get to the end, you're also given something else again. So it's not just sign up, we'll give you this, and forget to turn up. You're making sure that they are interactive all the way through. Some people I've seen do this very effectively as well, is if they're doing software or the webinar solution has a software element to it, they will give a reduced version piece of software at the end of the webinar, which will allow people to do some of the tasks of the big system, albeit more manually, so as not to make them think they can do it all without buying the whole package. But if you give them a little piece of software at the end that helps them in some way, that's a great incentive as well. And how much of my online business revolves around webinars right now? In the internet marketing niche, I'd say that's around 90%. As well as working with clients, helping them to increase their conversions and improve their funnels with webinars, I also do running webinars on my own list and a fairly extensive amount of webinar brokering, where I will help webinar creators and product creators and list owners find the appropriate offers and partners to bring together to do successful partnerships. It's very lucrative. It doesn't involve an awful lot of work on my part, technically setting things up, running things, because it's more of a networking task. And I've been lucky enough to figure out that I seem to be quite good at that unknowingly. Just it seems to be a skill set that it comes easily to me, but having done the circuits, gone to the events, made friends with people, established trust, and having a great reputation in the industry helps facilitate that. So it's a very easy way to make 5 figures without doing launches, without doing any kind of technical stuff, developing new products. So right now webinars are working real well for me. What would my life be like without webinars right now? My bank balance would certainly be a lot less. I'd be working harder and have a lot more stress and probably a few more grey hairs. Before I started working exclusively with webinars and doing brokering and back-end integrations, then I was doing a lot of product launches, a lot of funnels, helping people launch their products, a lot of technically challenging aspects and moving pieces, and if one part goes wrong during the launch, it's a major headache and very stressful. So I learned after doing that for a year, a bit of a slow learner, that there's a lot easier and better ways to make good money, and webinars are it. So I love them.